So you guys will have to help me through this, not being too familiar with the rules of order, as it were. First item on the agenda is to review the agenda. So, if we can have a look.
Yep, and I'll move approval of the agenda.
I'll second it.
All right.
All in
Fourth it
favor?
and everything else.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
All right, that's enough. Are you still
Well,
looking?
We do have a quorum, right?
Yep,
Quorum, yeah.
you?
So we're good.
Hey,
That's actually-
without you, we wouldn't have one.
Well,
We're happy
I
you're
knew it
both
was
here.
essential.
Yes. And then next we have the review of the minutes. So everyone just have a quick look at those.
Right. I'll move approval of the minutes as presented.
I will second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Anyone else?
I wasn't here, so.
Say,
Aye.
Say aye, okay, I didn't hear you.
All right, we're good, we're good, we're good.
Okay, good, okay. All right, so next we have the chief's update on the agenda. Chief? Calm down.
Good evening, Honorable Chair,
Good evening.
committee members. Report for you today. I'll go over a couple of things for you. Try to keep it succinct. What you have up on the board is deals with the arrest. But before I get into the arrest, I'll just give you a summation of what the crime actually was. From our year-to-date, and this was up through March 8th, our crime, for violent crime, we had a 6.08% drop, a decrease in violent crime. Thank God so far this year, no homicides, and we pray that it continues in that streak. When we look at our property crimes, we had an 8% drop a total of 8% drop in both the property crimes, and when you combine that with the violent crime, the drop was 8.27. So we had 8.74 for property combined with the 6% drop in violent crime. We had a total of 8.27 decrease in crime. That's year-to-date through March 8th. When we compare that with a 3-year, and again, that's important, and I feel a little awkward by doing that now because we're comparing NIBRs as opposed to UCR.
Oh, right, yeah. the
And
standard.
so you just keep in mind that some of these, this may be a little bit different if you were comparing strictly UCR. But overall, we had a total decrease in violent crime as compared to the last 3-year average of 7%. And for total crime, for the property crime, we had 11.12, and grand total of 10.4 when you look at the 3-year average. But I think the more important component would be examining the way it looks year to year. Why the 3-year average is important? Because of COVID.
Yeah.
You know, COVID's had an impact on crime, the crime rate. So when you see these numbers or hear these numbers, you have to keep in mind that COVID had an impact on it. Yes, sir.
UCR, I can guess. What's NIBRs?
National Incident-Based Reporting System.
Okay.
It's the
You got a
new,
newbie here.
it's the new system that the government is going to for reporting. The Uniform Crime Report is decades old, and quite frankly, the usefulness for that data is just used to compare. There's really, and how do you compare Miami and Gainesville?
Are they both federal databases or what level?
Federal database, yeah. And Florida has their own version of it. They call it FIBERS. Okay, it's the Florida Incident-Based Reporting System. And it's and the same thing with the UCR. We report UCR to Florida, and Florida takes that and reports it to the feds. The FIBERS is the same vehicle. We'll be reporting it to Florida, and they'll be reporting it to the feds. But they may also glean different information that's specific to Florida from that information. Okay. With any other questions on just the numbers themselves. But, and really, I hate to really kind of hang my hat on numbers because it doesn't really pay proper homage to, we're looking at a lot of quality of life issues which are important to our neighbors. You know, you ask them about, you know, thefts, and yeah, it might be important to a certain vein, but they are more concerned about quality of life issues, and that's really more important than anything else. Okay, so we'll go through the arrests, and this is just to give you some idea of the activity and what we've had, and really we broke this down differently so that you can see from a racial and gender perspective of what the numbers are, so there's no surprises in this. And the first sheet, you know, you'll see that we had a total of 28 black males arrested for felonies, 18 white males. When you look at the misdemeanors, you had 20 black males that were arrested, and you had 7 white males that were arrested, but you had 8 white females arrested. And these arrests are for felony and the misdemeanors, just kind of give you some idea of the number of arrests that we're making. Back in the day, quite frankly, these numbers might represent a week, you know, and this is the month. We used to, quite frankly, make that number of arrests. We're putting more investment into our prevention, more investment into working with our neighbors to try to do things that will stop people from falling into this type of problem. We're happy to say that our outreach efforts are giving us some results. We were talking about some of that this morning in another meeting. Happy to say that we're looking at the summer, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. We're looking at the summer and how do we prepare for the summer. We can't wait until June gets here to start talking about summer, but there's some things that we're doing to try to address that. The next page you have just a list of the arrests for adults by race and gender. You can see, we break this out so that you can see the different types of offenses and then who's been arrested, the numbers that's there. Again, this is our attempt to be transparent so that you can see exactly how many of each category we're arresting and what the results are. The next page deals with the sworn complaints, and as I told you last month, sworn complaints are not physical arrests. Those are charges that are referred to the state attorney's office. The state attorney's office looks at that and determines whether or not they're going to issue a warrant. These sworn complaints, typically they can be issued in 2 veins. One, we cannot locate the suspect. The other vein is that we know who the suspect is, but we don't think a physical arrest would be the most prudent thing at that time. As you can see, as far as felonies go, 33 of those were black males. And when you look at the misdemeanors, you had 21. White males had 11, and white males had 11 misdemeanors. But you notice that with the white females, that you had 13 as compared to 6 for the black females as far as felonies go. Yes, ma'am.
So I think what jumps out to me is the large numbers of domestic issues. And I know that COVID has played a role, plus I know it's just a big thing. And in fact, I know Ms. Melvin may know even more than she even wants to get into. But are you seeing a change in that, or is it kind of steady? But it's a lot.
You know, I think what we have seen is really it's been, that's something that jumped up and it hadn't gone down yet.
Okay.
And part of that has to do with some of the social pressures,
Sure.
economy.
Yep.
You know, some of it's just the fact that we were still, and this report still covers a period of time where we were under mandates.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see that decrease some as the economy changes, but that's the other side of the coin. When the economy goes bad,
Yeah.
you have more conflicts in homes, you have more domestic disturbances, and so we're trying to get ahead of that and offer assistance the best we can. Some of that is just educating people. I met with a group of kids and taught them about the basics of what constitutes an assault, what constitutes a battery, because believe it or not, a lot of folks have no ideas about what constitutes a felony assault and a felony battery. You know, educating young folks that if they picked up a stick and threatened to hit someone, and that person thought they were gonna do it, that's a felony. You know, you should have seen the eyes open up when that's a felony? I didn't hit anybody. Yes, but you threatened to hit someone. So talking with them about it, educating that, I think that's something that we have to do a little more of, and that we're trying to get and become more engaged in dealing with the kids in that level. The next slide is the sworn complaints. It shows the adult and the racial breakdown for that. Again, when you look across here, you see the things that have the most, and these are the top 10 offenses that they list. Theft, petty theft, people stealing from stores, people stealing, small items. Sometimes petty theft is, that's something that's become, is that indicative of the economy? Some of it is, I think. There's some folks that just, jobs are plenty, but there's some folks that apparently can't get hired and choose to do something different, or maybe young folks that are doing it. The criminal mischief, again, that's destroying someone's property, but you see battery comes in at 10, and simple battery for domestic comes in at 9. So, that's a consistent theme. Then you see a serious drop off for trespass after warning. But, these are, the first two are non-violent crimes, the next two are violent, and we take a little more aggressive approach to those violent crimes. And when we can, we will make the arrest in accordance with the state statute. But sometimes you have to use a little common sense. You have two brothers that have a little wrestling match. You're going to take one to jail. I'm talking about kids now. That's charge them with, you have to be a little smarter about that, and we take that approach and be a little more progressive in that manner. The next slide deals with the gangs of pre-arrest. You see the breakdown there. In this pre-arrest, misdemeanors, there are 11 white males that are involved in that, 5 black males, 5 white females, and 3 black females. The breakdown as far as charges go, if you look at the next page, it'll show you that the vast majority of these are petty thefts. Petty theft, then you have the alcohol beverage violations, residential parties, and again, that seems to be the overwhelming thing, people partying and drinking as far as the pre-arrest goes. Next slide deals with juvenile arrest for felony and misdemeanor offenses. And this is something that we have to, I quite frankly have some curiosity about, because all the folks involved in these are black. If you look at the juvenile arrest, the felonies, you have 9 black males and 1 black female. When you look at the misdemeanors, there's 1 black male. These are, again, felonies. We don't have a whole lot of latitude, particularly if they're violent. But my curiosity has peaked with this, and I want to find out specifically what's going on with that, and hope to have better answers for you in the next meeting. Juvenile arrest, felony and misdemeanors. It's a breakdown. Again, you see the burglaries, aggravated assaults. There's not that many of them, but these are juvenile offenses. And again, we've noted a slight decrease with juvenile offenses, and we hope that continues. I have to thank these guys here for that behavior, the school resource officers, and maybe they have a little more information for you in a minute. Juvenile sworn complaints. Again, that's similar slow and steady decline. We have a total of 10 felonies and a total of 10 misdemeanors. The demographics for those are similar to what we discussed previously. Juvenile sworn complaints, we have a total of 20. You see 5 of those are felony battery. That more than likely we were not able to locate those subjects. Petty thefts, those are things that we might have just released, people that we may have released. The simple battery the same. But you see that there's no, other than the felony battery, the rest of them are relatively low numbers for each of the categories. Juvenile citations, we are looking at, we have 2, and trying to figure out exactly why that number is lower than what we expect. So we have a meeting, I know I have a meeting coming up, I think it's next week, to talk about juvenile citations and try to determine why those numbers, has the crime decreased that much, or are we not issuing it that much? We haven't seen a huge increase in the arrests, so I'm guessing that these guys are being very effective in schools. That's a quick overview of the crime and the arrest. Want to make sure that we point out to you that a large part of what we do is in the prevention side and community engagement. We have right now working with Wayne Fields and his organization to try to find jobs for, I believe it's 125, but I think they also have a connection for another 120. So looking at like over 200 jobs for youth age 14 to 17. I know we're working with the city manager's office on the prospect of an additional jobs program, which will be more long-term. And I won't put anything out there about that until it's codified. But we want to try to get on the front end, provide the youth an opportunity and young adults an opportunity to earn a legal dollar. And we're not looking at putting, with the program that we're designing now, we're trying to design a career path for kids. You know, and the second program, if we can get this come to fruition, it will start at age 17, and it would end, or could end, with jobs for as many as 30 people. So we're looking at doing that, and we're hoping that we can make that presentation and put that information forth. But there's a lot of work to be done on that, and it has to go to the city commission and so on. But we're trying to get on the front end and start doing things for the summer now. The same thing with, we have the heat wave and the Operation Respect Yourself, which are pool parties and really kind of engaging the children and young adults now before we get to the summer. In the summer, we'll be doing, these fellas come out and cook hamburgers and hot dogs for the kids, give them a pool party and trying to make sure that they have a safe environment to engage in. We're reaching out to, I don't know how many different communities as far as the business watches that we're putting up, the neighborhood watches that we have. Constantly, right now I have 2 that are going on. I had another one that I was supposed to make, and I had to make this meeting. But we are reaching out and trying to re-engage the community. And again, our concept is that we're one community. We need to work together to identify and resolve these issues. So that's your report for the month. Any questions, Colleen?
Yes, thank you. I have 3 or 4 questions. On slide 9, the juvenile arrests, the burglary to unoccupied conveyance, is that typically an opportunistic thing, like unlocked vehicles?
Yes, I mean, and really that's one of our biggest headaches, because that's where a lot of the guns that are on the street come from. You know, we put out, and we've been getting a lot better response from it, we put out these public service announcements asking people to lock their cars. But if you look at the study of the number of guns that are sold in each state, Florida's in the top 5, and unfortunately, our folks believe in buying guns and leaving them in unlocked cars. And in fact, I may bring the slide next month so you can see on a monthly basis how many guns are taken out of unlocked cars, so that you can see video of the kids walking down the street, pulling on the door handles. And if the door opens, they go in the car, and inevitably, out of 10 cars, they might find 3 or 4 guns out of those cars. And that's the 10 cars that they go in, they're unlocked. And that's a problem.
Yeah, I've seen those TV spots. You look good on TV.
But thank you.
On slide 11, fail to leave information in unattended vehicles. That somebody hits a vehicle and drives off, doesn't leave their info?
Yeah, failure to leave information? Yes.
Yeah.
So if you strike a vehicle, state law says that, if nobody's there, you have to provide your information.
Yeah.
If you don't do that and you cause damage, it's a hit and run.
Okay. And the last one, on the juvenile citation, slide 13, is the civil citation represent an example of leniency or diversion?
Diversion,
to do that
yes.
Instead of and as far as you're aware, is that evenly applied?
that's why we provide these numbers, you know, and that's why we keep track of these numbers. Everything here, you know, we, in our previous reports, it wasn't broke down like this. I sat down, I had some questions. When it came to me, I had some questions. And I said, well, I want to know how many of this and that. That's why it's broken down this way.
You can't really
So we have to gather that data.
Tiny numbers on that one.
Yeah, we have to gather that data and then look at it and again, the proportionality of crime, who's committing the crimes, to who gets, are we giving any particular group, college students, a break more than we give our average citizen? All that's just something that we're tracking this information so that we keep track of it and be able to address it appropriately.
Thank you.
I think Ms.
Hey, so, I think I'm gonna bring this up when we do the internal affairs, but trespass after warning, I'm very interested in because the belief is, well, even the case that we're gonna look at, the police officer prompted the employee to, you want me to trespass him? And, I feel like also a lot is tacked on arrest resistance without violence. It's also another one that I'm concerned about, that I'd like to have numbers on that at some point, because I feel that's a tacked on thing. So,
Well, what you have right here are the top 10. So it's not in the top 10 of what we charge people with. This is the top 10 for each of those categories. Unless you see it there, that it's not making that top 10 of the number of arrests we have. But
it's not usually the primary. It's not usually the primary arrest. What people I know who've been arrested in Gainesville, a lot of times the resisting without violence is added on. They feel it's added on.
It can be,
And
yes.
in one of the internal affairs things that the guy had, he was resisting, but the other thing is possession of a controlled substance felony.
Yes,
Later in the report talks about marijuana.
yes,
The county commissioners like Hutch
yeah.
do not think that there's been any arrest for marijuana in Alachua County.
I think,
I think we may have talked about that before.
yeah, I can't really speak to what the county commission thoughts are, but what I could tell you is that, you know, our arrest for simple possession of cannabis has decreased significantly over the years. A lot of the arrests we make today are for people who are selling or have it packaged to sell. So if I stop you and you have 10 packets of cannabis in your pocket,
Yeah.
the thought is that that's not for personal use. And if you have, particularly have money in your pocket as well, or you have other drugs in your pockets, which is quite frankly a lot of the case, then we know this person is a person who's not necessarily a user, but a seller. And so we'll be more apt to make that a physical arrest. People who are out there using, and it's still illegal unless you have the proper certification, medical certification, you know, they're subject to be arrested. Do we make the physical arrest on that? I would think most officers would make a citation and or pre-arrest type situation, a diversion type approach, a citation or something along those lines.
Well, there is a juvenile sworn complaint, possession of less than 20 grams of cannabis.
But
So-
again, we're dealing with a juvenile.
Yeah.
And the sworn complaint is basically sent it to the state attorney's office. So it's not a physical arrest, it's, hey, this person with the possession of it, and let the state attorney's office. If the person doesn't have a substantial, even if they have a substantial record, sometimes the state attorney's office will do a pre-diversion program, and the person won't end up with a record of that
Can I just
arrest.
ask one more? Gainesville pre-arrest, what does that mean?
That's the program that we started, I think about a little more than a year ago. And with that, we complete a form, the officer completes what we call the GPA form. And it doesn't really give a court date, and when we do a notice to appear, we give a court date. What that document does, it simply goes to the state attorney's office looks at it, it goes through our person initially, and they send it to the state attorney's office, they look at it and say, hey, this is possession of a controlled substance, this person has two bags of cannabis on them. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and allow them to refer them to this program. With the benefit of that is that when they complete the program, they don't really have an arrest record because we didn't arrest them.
Yeah.
You know, now if I arrest you and you get a diversion program, you have an arrest record. But if we use the pre-arrest, that means you weren't arrested. So we wrote everything up and sent it to the state attorney's office. The state attorney's office does what they call a pre-arrest. It's really a diversion without an arrest record.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Okay? Ms. Perk?
Yeah, I had one follow-up question about resisting arrest. And my question was sort of whether, you know, if the primary offense was something like domestic violence,
Yes.
and then resisting arrest was tacked on
Yeah.
as a secondary whatever offense, would that appear in these numbers, the resisting arrest? I think that's sort of one way of asking you that question.
I'll have to verify.
Yeah.
I know when we're reporting information to the state,
Right.
they go with the higher charge,
Right.
but that was under UCR. Neighbors have to verify. I would imagine that they would go with the higher charge as well, but I want to give you the right answer, so I get that for you and bring it back to you.
Great. And then the other question was, this is really the colleague's question. I mean, I think it'd be really, you know, some of these statistics in isolation, you know, there's
yeah.
one, you know, they just don't tell you very much, right?
Right.
Because they're not long-term. So it would be very interesting to see sort of a 10-year, you know, sort of a longer-term comparison, maybe monthly comparison for some of these numbers. Because one of the first things you said when you showed the first slide was, if you looked at these arrest numbers years ago, these would be the number of arrests for a week.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would love to see that. Because
Okay.
I think that's something that we could really use, you know, in sort of our operations and stuff like that.
I will endeavor to have them generate comparisons, the number of arrests. I know it's decreased dramatically.
Yeah, that'd be
Because that, you know, as a rookie officer a few years back, you know, I know how many arrests that I made, and I could tell you that probably in a month,
yeah.
those were probably my numbers.
And it would also be interesting to compare those with the numbers for sworn complaints over time too, because you might think that those might not be changed
Yeah,
in the same way as the arrest numbers.
okay.
So
We'll pull that up.
Interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
But, you know,
Yeah, you've had different state attorneys, I mean, there's some
Right.
other variables.
there are a lot of variables that go into it. I mean, you have to look at what the economy was doing at the time.
Yeah.
How were we with staffing? You know, were there other critical issues going on? You know, there are a lot of factors, but, you know, you have to see the information first, and then maybe you need explanations for those
Yeah,
afterwards.
so-
But, yeah, we'll get that information for you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
How are you doing with staffing nowadays?
Staffing is still a challenge, you know. I'm doing exit interviews, so I'm talking with folks that choose to leave. What I've done so far is not anything with GPD. It's that he's going to join his family in South Florida. I asked how he thought things were going. He was very positive, likes the direction that we're headed. I have another one scheduled coming up, and I'll find out. And we're going to respond to this, and we gather that information, and we'll make adjustments as we need to. I will say that our applications have dramatically increased since we instituted the incentive plan, and we have quite a few people that have certification that have applied. But even with that volume of application, I've reinstituted the chief's interview, where before we hire someone, myself, the assistant chief, and the chief inspector are going to sit down and interview them, because I want to make sure we get the right type of people in our organization. I need people who are going to be problem solvers, not necessarily problem makers. I don't need someone out there causing me more issues. I want folks that can work with the community, We have our oral board. We normally have a citizen sit on our oral board to help see these folks and give us another opinion. So it's not strictly a police officer's review of that person. We have a neighbor that's sitting there because we work for you. You need to have some input. So I know Commissioner Master DeCosta has done it before. And we invite any of you that would like to sit on the board. It's a commitment because it takes, probably at least 5-6 hours out of your day, depending on the number of people. But it's something I think is interesting for you to see and see what we see and how we select people. And the discussion that we have about, and this actually happened, someone showed up for an interview and they had a necklace with a little gun on it, that tells you everything you need to know about that person, okay? Because it's not a crucifix, it's not something, it's a little gun. It was I think it was a 45 simulation of. That's not. And then the first question when you ask, you have any questions for us? What kind of gun do you have? It's like that's a person that's fascinated with guns. This is the last resort for us. Well, we need people who can talk, people who can think. That's our first priority. So if they're going to have my name on it, I'm going to sit there and look them in the eye and find out who they are, what they are, and what they believe.
How many officers are you down for patrol now?
33 officers, I believe, total that we have.
So a lot of overtime nowadays.
Oh yeah. When in my day, again a few years ago, we used to sit back and wait for the overtime for overtime to hit the book and sign up. Now we literally sometimes get to a point where we have to beg folks to work overtime, or some extraordinary situations we have to order them to work when we have no other choice. But we try to make that something that we don't do often because we want people to have the right attitude. But staffing is a challenge. But I think give us a year, I think we'll be in a little better position than we are now.
33 out of how many? What's the total number of?
Out of 283, 284, and at one point we had 306 officers, but we converted some of those to civilian positions. And it doesn't matter if we have 300 now. If we have 30 plus vacancies, until we get to the point where we can hire all those folks. And what's not commonly understood, and at one point we even had to explain this to commissioners previously, is that it's not as easy to hire a police officer as it is, say, a mechanic. Because the police officers, it takes from the time that we start, we have an opening, we advertise, by the time we train them through the academy, train them through our programs, by the time we get through with them, it's over a year. You add in the backgrounds and everything. So if they came in tomorrow and said, Lonnie, you have 20 more police officers you can hire, it will be over a year and a half before I can get those. And then we can only train so many at one time. We only have so many trainers, so I can only put 10 to 15 officers at one time into the training program. And that training program lasts at least 14 weeks, in some cases 18. So those are factors that have to be worked in. And so when we have a deficit in officers, it's not easy for us to replace them. And that's why we tried. The city has stepped up, and our retention efforts have stepped up greatly. They put in a step plan. They put in some other incentives so money is not the main focus for why people leave. It's typically a family issue. But again, this is something else that we're trying to deal with and address. But we're asking the right questions now. Why are you leaving? And what could we do to improve? Not saying that we did anything wrong, but we can always improve, and we're asking that question of all of our folks.
I wanted to just follow up. Are you getting candidates coming from ASO or not so much? It's a political charge question.
I plead the fifth. I will say that we're not comfortable divulging where people are coming from right now.
Okay, that's.
You know,
Fair question.
But we can say that we have some folks that are certified from other places,
Yeah, we'll
some other academies, fresh out academies that are,
A question asked and answered. Okay,
Okay.
so, now, where do we stand with FPO in negotiation? Are we in the contract negotiations now?
with FTO.
Yeah.
No, FTO, that contract has already been sealed for the FOP.
FOP.
The FOP, that's already been signed, and it was one of the quickest negotiating sessions that we've ever had. I think it took us 2 months, maybe 2 or 3 at the most. Very amicable. We worked together, a team, because we realized that we needed to have better retention and better recruitment, and the contract was really put together to address those issues, and I think the union and its membership walked away feeling very positive about
When was that, last year?
that happened at the end of last year. I believe it was like, no, and they still had, I think, a year to go, but, under contract, but because we saw such a need to address the retention issue, the union agreed, let's open it up and let's work together, and it was probably one of the most amicable negotiations I think we've had, and we did that very quickly and put it in place, and now we're dealing with the PBA, which are the lieutenants.
All right, well,
Okay.
any other questions for Chief Scott?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next agenda item, Police Advisory Council member comments. I had a few items on this list. The first one is the council annual report to the city commission, which has my name next to it.
It does,
I
although.
remember
I
Gina saying she was
I offered to draft it, and I have to confess, I haven't done it yet, but I will do it. I just haven't done it. Actually, there's some materials in here, I think that'll help drive it. So I will be happy to write a draft, and then we can work, I don't mind going, or you can go, or we can both go to the commission or whatever.
Yeah.
We had been talking about April 22nd first, and that that is the day that is our Board of Trustees meeting, and I may not be able to do that day, but I have to actually see the agenda, figure out what the deal is. You're probably in the middle of, is that reading days? Yeah, it is, I bet.
What date is that again?
Thursday, the 21st.
I think that is the day after classes end.
Yeah, so that'd be a reading day.
So it is a reading day. I'm available.
Theoretically in town, okay, so
I'm
we'll.
theoretically available.
I
that
think
day.
if the board is okay with that, I was gonna take last year's report and just update it with the topics, and I was just gonna mention that we had difficulty achieving a quorum a few times, and then kind of folding in the upcoming topics that we still have for this next bit, as well as the intention to start traveling.
Yeah.
So it's like a 5-minute report.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's-
I have one thought about
Sure.
something we might want to include in that report, but yeah, go ahead.
When you said a draft, I didn't see a draft of the first one you presented.
Okay.
I would like it to be a little more hard-hitting about
Okay, yeah, last year was really. we don't-
hurriedly.
Yes.
You agreed, which is kind of you.
I'm happy to, what I could do is I can send it to Miss Deborah, and she can send around for any edits, that's fine, because you just have to respond back to her, so
Right.
it's sunshine law. The first one was very, just a high-level overview, because we'd only been met a few months when they
Right.
wanted the report, so this year we'll be able to probably have a little more substance. So I'll get that cranked out and taken care of, we can do it by email, if you have edits or suggestions.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Because
let's
I'm
get
fine
that
with that.
circulated. to people.
Yeah, I'll get it, because I just haven't done it, because I just haven't.
And yeah, so the 21st is sort of our, I think, right, the plan.
And we'll aim for the
Yeah,
21st,
that
and
sounds good.
we should be able to do that. And I'm delighted to send you, I'm happy to do it, if not.
It's appreciated. It's definitely appreciated.
Nothing makes you more nervous than standing at that podium in City Hall, with everybody looking at you. Good for you.
Absolutely.
Oh, gosh, you did it for years from the other side.
I did, but I'm teasing him, because I think, it's a run to teach students, but it's not quite the same going to the.
It's really not.
It's not.
The students, you determine the students' grade. You know, it's
That's
the
right.
other way around.
Yeah, they'll
So,
be pretty kind. They'll be interested, I think, so that's good.
The second item, this is sort of loosely related to the report, is the prospect of holding a meeting in the community, or the general prospect of holding meetings in the community. I think Mr. Kreiner raised that possibility in our last meeting. I'm supportive of it. I think it's maybe worth having a brief discussion of sort of whether we want to do that, where we want to do that, and when, and also whether we want that meeting to be sort of in lieu of, or sort of just the same as one of our council meetings, or if we want a special listening session or a special open forum to meet with members of the community. I don't know. I mean, the more experienced members of the council might have more experience
Yeah, y'all
with
did
this.
that back then. You know
Yeah, we
all
used
that.
to, before pre-COVID, we did.
I liked it a lot. I mean, like when we met at the slab, there was one set of issues. We met in UPNA, another set of issues. The negative of it was simply we didn't, except for one or two meetings, didn't get good neighborhood attendance.
That's what I was
We
wondering.
somehow have to figure out how to get better publicity. And there are ways to do it, we'll get that in a second. But I like the idea of just, meeting in the neighborhood. We're not required to broadcast on Zoom anymore,
Right.
so it's just an option. So with that said, it's effective. I'll tell you the worst place for us to meet is the police department.
Yeah.
I don't know, we've met there before, because there's some, if somebody has some concerns with the police department, it's just, it could be intimidating.
I wouldn't want our meetings to be there. I wouldn't go have meetings there.
Well, we used to have some there, we stopped. This is,
Only one lone crank kept showing up, right?
Yeah. Melanie knows how to find that.
oh, I know that, Craig. And I think you agree with me, Colleen, it ain't the best place, especially
Definitely.
when you have to go upstairs through double
Oh, right,
doors, which
when
you
we
may
did it
never
upstairs.
exit from.
Yeah.
We could meet, this is not bad to me because it's very public and people in the public know, but neighborhoods, except for a few regulars, not that many people actually come to city commission meetings.
Right.
So I'd like to meet in neighborhoods and make it well known. Which neighborhood? Well, that's easy. Every neighborhood.
Yeah.
And one way we could do this that I think would help us work, we haven't done this before, every neighborhood has a city commissioner. And I think that'd be three districts? Four districts, that's right. So the district commissioners do their town hall meetings.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we want to double up with that because they have their agenda. One possibility is double up with a town hall meeting. And some of them are extremely well attended. There's somehow some publicity done. And this is an election year, so those who are running for re-election, they'll make sure there's some publicity. And so we could do it in conjunction with or supported by a particular city commissioner. And then the second thing we can do for publicity is take TV 20. Some days they are literally desperate for something to report on. And something to report between commercials for accident attorneys. And we got to reach out to them. Now, I don't know whose responsibility that is. I don't know if the police department can, works with the communications. You do?
Yes, John Alexander and his group coordinate with the Crime Watch chairs.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, yeah.
Oh, well, John's great, okay.
So maybe we could ask what some of the pick up active crime watch. I don't know who's active these days, but I bet you John would know the answer.
Yes, we have a list and I can send.
Yeah, active crime watch.
Yeah, just one that they're regularly meeting, or, something's going on.
We've done it a few times we've done it in conjunction with neighborhood meetings. They're having their neighborhood meeting and our board, a double meeting.
I think that's really interesting.
The only thing we are required is public notice. And I think we have to have a notes taker. That's all.
Yeah.
I like the ideas he's saying. I think in conjunction with meetings of neighborhood watches, or ask the state for another meeting after theirs is a good way to get turnout.
Yeah.
Another way, since you mentioned the district and the city commissioners, when they do have town halls in their district, we could perhaps have this board meet, a week later and ask them to really push it in their town hall meeting and to attend ours to get more turnout.
Right.
And as far as media, I would suggest you also invite the Gainesville Guardian and WUFT. They will tend to come and stuff. But again, if it's following a town hall, look at what media came to town hall and ask them, ask the same ones.
Right.
But I think meeting the neighborhoods is an important way to make people feel like they can be heard and it's accessible.
I agree. And I think that we've done, my sense is that we've done a pretty good job reading our ordinance here. Studying the city's police department and gathering information, and only speaking to since my time on the team. But I think it would be beneficial to receive more community input concerning public safety issues and law enforcement needs and concerns. And I think that this is a way to get people sort of equal opportunity to participate who may not want to come down to the basement of City Hall. And
I think
hang
it's
out
a
with
great
us.
idea.
I truly believe it's got to be in conjunction with something already happening.
I think I
Either
agree, yeah.
the city commissioner, when they're
Town
out in the
hall, yeah.
community or something, or we hold a barbecue, because people are not going to come out just to talk to people they don't know about
I would
issues.
worry about that. No, I think you're right, and I think maybe joining this with a town hall meeting
Yeah.
is a nice, actually, but I don't know.
I like it.
I have a question. Can the meeting just be a town hall meeting with this board?
It could.
I just don't think people will come unless there's something else going on.
I think you have to really partner with
A
some
city
I think
commission.
if we take Mr. Blount's suggestion and offer to have one of the commissioners come,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
would
That sounds great.
absolutely
Yeah.
alleviate that issue.
Yeah,
Or barbecue. I know. Where'd Mr. Scott
Are we allowed
go?
to
He
spend
used to
money on
do the
food?
barbecues.
I don't know, there's.
No, I'm
Might be a-
kidding. I'm
might be a
kidding.
restriction.
I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
But I think what we should plan to do is for the next meeting, for April 27th, our regular 6 PM, so everybody should have it on their calendar. We just communicate with the city commission and see if there's an interest.
Yeah.
I was thinking about Representative Walker, just because she's not up for reelection, and that keeps us out of any shenanigans with election time. She's just got another year or two.
Certainly,
Yeah, because District 2 and 3 and 4 are all up for like election and new seats. So that's why I was thinking District 1, and that way it would just be simpler.
we could have one of our members meet with her
Yeah,
and deputize, and as long as there's only one member, not two, there's no noticing
Sure.
required. And we just explain to her who we are, what we do, and
yeah,
and then ask her the key question.
sure.
Ask not what you can do for our panel, what can our panel do for you?
Right. That's a good approach to get things started.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And so,
We gotta get that volunteer too.
right, so this would 4 districts, we'd aim for sort of 4 meetings on this approach over the course of the year, something like that, right? If we're meeting with separate districts, separate neighborhoods?
Yeah, this would be our regular monthly meeting, I imagine.
Okay, yeah.
Would there be budget to support door-to-door flyering the week before a neighborhood meeting?
I don't know about that sort of thing. I don't think we have a budget, do we?
We do not.
With this She's got us at the room, we'll just
Yeah.
charge it to him.
Yeah, there we go, we'll put on his credit card. I don't think we have that, I think maybe the best way is sort of through the commissioner, through the commissioners.
I think I would just tell you to start and ask her for a meeting, or just send her an email, tell her what you want, and then she can follow up. I know she, also runs a business, so
Right.
I think email is a good way to start as a request.
Yeah,
And
Makes sense.
if we went to the city commission and said we need X dollars, actually, we don't have to go to the city commission. If we went to the manager and said we needed X dollars, she'd come up with it right away.
right.
Most people don't know it, but the city is in extremely good financial shape.
All right, well, let's move,
Doesn't seem like it.
see yourself. All right, so in the interest of time, I think we should move on to the next item. So the next thing is, should move through fairly quick, neighborhood policing initiative training. I know that Chief Inspector Kernick has sort of encouraged us to do this a handful of times. Maybe some of you have already done it. This item is as much for me as it is for anyone else. But I think it would be beneficial for us to try to find a time to, either individually or as a group, doing it as a group might be challenging, but to attend one of these trainings. Deborah's provided us with a list of the dates.
I can do one, there's a date I can do.
I can't do any Thursdays at 8 to 5 a.m. 8 a.m. to 2. I'm in court at that time.
The option, if we could all do it together, is Saturday is the only time I could do it. I can't get off work for it.
That's fair.
Right, yeah.
I can
Saturday,
commit to May 27th. I can do that, that's the last day of public school, by the way. But I'll be in town, I'll take the day off, and
my sense is that it might be challenging for us to coordinate a date together,
yeah,
right?
Well, if I think that Saturday, while not the most popular
I'm
option,
willing to try a
is
Saturday.
the best option
Yeah,
to do the training,
for all of us to do the neighborhood
the
policing
neighborhood policing training.
training.
Can we do,
I wouldn't do it by myself. If the whole group isn't in, I'm not going to take my precious time, I know we're all busy.
I'm willing to try try a Saturday, but if not, I can definitely commit to that one day.
How long is the training?
It's from 8 to 2 if you pick one of those both days, and if they do it on Friday, April 8th, from noon to 6.
So it's no more than 6 hours, if that. Sometimes if they do it out a little bit
so
later.
if any one person would attend one of these, it's not a whole series of classes.
That's correct.
Right.
It's just one, yeah, so the thought is, we can either each attend one individually on our own schedule, or we can try to do one together, right, on a Saturday. So what we could potentially do is circulate some dates through Deborah for Saturday options, and see if any of those align with everyone's schedule.
I'm willing to try.
If not, hopefully we can each go to one individually. I know I intend to in the next couple of months. So.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, moving on. So sorry. Remaining discussion topics. So I thought it would just be kind of nice to get a physical copy of some of the topics that we've covered thus far since 2021, along with the remaining topics that we haven't gotten to yet in our meetings. I don't think that we need to discuss these right now, but it might be, something I might do is I might ask Deborah to see if our priorities have changed at all with respect to the remaining topics, if there are any on the list to be discussed that we think are more urgent than others, that we can sort of move to the top of the list, because there are still several left, and a lot more ground to cover. So that's just to sort of give us a sense of where we stand now.
When was this list created, topics requested?
This was early 2021.
The beginning.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go back, because I had sent her a list of 12 things I was very interested in.
Yeah. If those are not reflected on here, then we should get those on the list. So if you need to send them again, that would be.
Sheila did cover some
Maybe it is a different.
topics.
Right, yeah.
And so,
But some of them never made it on the list
The agenda,
of discussion from the beginning.
Slide. And
Whether I
then
can find my email to you.
But you can look at that one.
Well, I think Yeah, I think if Ms. Sheila will send her list and see if there's any other missing things. And then I also think it's a good opportunity if we're out in the community doing some listening next month that might jog us in a direction. Because we've kind of covered a lot of the basics now. And I'd love to hear.
I think being out in the community will probably change our perspective.
Yes.
I think that makes sense to
Do that first.
do that first.
I'm excited that we think we can go and do that. I mean, I feel like it was hard to, obviously COVID wasn't the right time, but I'm glad that things are progressing that way.
Yeah, I think now's a good time to do it. Okay.
Just to let you know, Human Special Clinic is advising about the MPI training for Saturday, May, sometime in May.
Oh,
That's it.
Saturday.
She is
So
also on,
May's the best time for Saturday training, is that?
yeah, but she is online if y'all have any questions for her.
Okay. May should work very well for me, so, so maybe we can get some, yeah, maybe we can send out some dates for Saturdays in May.
Yeah. We'll see if I can pull that off.
Things I wanted to ask.
Yeah, Saturday's tough for me too.
Yeah, I don't like that.
We can do it.
We'll see, and if we can't, we can't.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, I agree.
And there's still plenty of days in this
Yeah.
bulk if May doesn't work, so.
Yeah, that's kind of why I was like, oh, well, my guilt is low because I'll probably do the one on that Friday and be done. But
Exactly.
we shall see.
Okay, so if there are no other comments, I think we can move on to the sixth item on the agenda here, school resource officer presentation.
Good evening.
Evening.
I am Sergeant Matt Walters. I'm one of the two school resource officers, unit supervisors. And
Sergeant Hutchison.
we want to talk to you about what we love, and that's working with young people in the schools. It's a passion of both of ours. We've both been school resource officers and have now come back to the unit as supervisors. Just real briefly, the origin of school resource officers, it started in Flint, Michigan, actually a long time ago, 1950s. Flint, Michigan started a program to get police and the youth more engaged. Over time, it was adopted throughout the country. There's no specific item or number yet on how many school resource officers there are, but they estimate 14,000 to 20,000 SROs are currently working in schools nationwide.
All right. The Gainesville Police Department currently provides SROs for 16 schools in the Alachua County School Board. 9 of the schools are elementary schools, and we'll get on to discussing how each school is unique and requires a unique SRO to work in those schools. 3 of the schools are middle schools, 2 are high schools, and 2 are alternative schools, of course, which is Aquin Jones. And we also have a special needs school, which is, of course, is Sidney Lanier. The Alachua County Sheriff Department has 17 schools that they have SRDs in. Let's see. And of course, the Alachua PD as well as High Springs also, they have 1 apiece.
For those that don't know, school resource officers or SROs have 3 basic roles. One is law enforcement, okay, to protect our kids, to keep crime out of our schools. And the other 2 I think are even more important, and that's mentoring with youth, okay, to be a good role model for them and to help guide and steer them to making good decisions on their own as they grow. And also education. We provide presentations and instructions on a lot of different topics when we can get into the classroom. Through COVID though, that one has been sort of shut down for a long time, but we're starting to get back into the classrooms again, being able to present to kids at all grade levels.
All right. As I said earlier, there are different categories that we service. Of course, we have the high schools, we have the middle schools, and we have the elementary schools. Each school is very unique, and each resource officer must understand, how to work that school, how to be a relationship with the kids in that school, how to be a relationship with the administration in the school. It takes a lot of time, which we as supervisors, we understand, we know we've been there. I was a resource officer for 9 years. I'm the youth pastor at my church, my wife and I. My wife and I, we both have a dance studio, which we also use it as a community center. We understand what it takes to work with kids. We are constantly around kids. I'm around kids. I'm around kids so much sometimes I seem like I act like a kid around adults. That's how much I'm around kids. So we understand, you know, what it takes to work with the youth, which is why we are very careful with who's in which school. You know, some resource officers are fantastic with elementary kids. Some are great with middle school and high school kids. So we recognize that and we understand that. But again, like we were saying, we must work in collaboration with the school board in order to meet our goals.
Yep. All right. Day in the life of an SRO. Again, every school's different, so this is just a basic of what SROs will do in general. They're there bell to bell from before the kids get there till after the kids leave. So you always have an officer on campus. So we work with the kids arriving and the kids throughout the day and then the kids leaving. The officers are going to do campus perimeter checks, make sure gates are locked, fences are good and in place, they aren't damaged. Access points are secure. Then throughout the day, response to requests from the principal, the BRT, which is a behavioral resource teacher, that's the elementary level of who takes care of the problems that occur. At middle and high school, it's the deans. And so the SRO works closely with those school personnel. Then we also, by state statute, the SRO is part of the threat assessment team for every campus. That's through the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act. We are an integral part of that. So when threats occur or potential threats are brought up, the SRO is part of that team to look at it closely and how can we resolve this or keep it from becoming bigger, or is it even really a problem? Okay. We respond to incidents that happen, any fights on campus, DCF investigations, because DCF will show up at the schools because they know the kids are going to be there. Sometimes when they go to their homes to talk to kids, they can't find them. So DCF comes frequently to the schools for their investigations through the hotline. Proactive efforts. We want to engage with the kids. Mentoring is huge. Supporting the kids and getting them to feel comfortable around not only police officers, but all sorts of authority, the principals, the deans. And then we're also a resource for parents and the staff as well. Sometimes staff is going through stuff and they need help too, because they're community members as well. Okay. The impact of the Stoneman Parkland School, Stoneman Douglas High School, had a big impact nationally, but especially in the state of Florida. It created the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, which now says every public school will have either a police officer or a safety officer on their campus. The Alachua County School Board decided to make it school resource officers because we have a lot of experience with that. We have a lot of things we bring to the table that just a guardian is a person on campus with a gun, doesn't mentor, doesn't go into the classrooms and teach. So you miss a lot of those elements with schools that just have a guardian program. There's some details there on how that shooting happened. I think we all probably remember that. Some of the things that have happened because of that during the Florida Senate Bill 7026, they created the Fortify Florida app, which is a hotline basically for the state. Anybody can call in tips to that hotline, and they then filter that down to the local government and the agencies handling those areas to deal with any tips that, for threats. Because a lot of tips happened before Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and they went nowhere, which is a real shame. Removed impediments. The Department of Education can now share freely with FDLE on students that show red flag behaviors. School board safety chiefs. Yours is now Casey Hamilton, who was a school resource deputy with the Alachua County Sheriff's Office before he came to work for the school district. They mandate safety officers on campus. We do what's called the Florida Safe Schools Assessment Tool. Every year, we check the campuses, and it's a statewide tool for safety and security, what is in place now, and what can we improve on. We have mandatory certifications. All the SROs must have basic SRO training and crisis intervention training. All right.
All right, some of the changes that GPD has made with the SRO since the legislation passed. We added 5 new school resource officers to the unit, thus ensuring every school has a dedicated officer. We ensured that the school resource officer would be present at every school during hours. So even if we have a resource officer that calls in because of some reason, we have to find overtime officers to work in that school. And those overtime officers are required to take the school resource.
Basic school resource PowerPoint.
Yeah.
That we've created, so everybody that works in a school knows the basics of how to operate in a school.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's going to be the officers that are used to working with kids, have kids of their own, and enjoy being around kids. We work with the staff to complete risk assessments for every school. Again, it's a collaborative effort. We work very closely with the school principals, the entire administration to ensure that the campus is safe. We created critical incidents plan for all schools. Every year, it is up to each SRO in those schools to update this critical incident plan. That way, every officer that has to respond to that school would have an idea of where to go, who to make contact with, where to get the keys from, so forth and so on. The Alachua County School Board chooses a standard response protocol for response to critical incidents on campus, and the SROs help to train drill staff and students. This is throughout the school year. The SROs, again, are assisting administration with critical incident plans. Every year, we deliver 3 days of single responder to active shooter on campus setting training for SROs. Sergeant Walters is absolutely phenomenal. Oftentimes when, for teacher planning days or during the holidays, we will plan training for the SROs just so we can prepare for anything that may take place in the school, which is absolutely phenomenal. Participate in unique projects. We work with the University of Florida College of Psychology to produce SRO training on identifying, predicting, and stopping student trauma. Of course, we understand that this day and age, students are faced with a lot of trauma.
And he had mentioned it before, the critical incident training that the school district does for their faculty and staff so they know how to react in a given situation. It used to be ALICE. Any of y'all have heard of that before? It's now the I Love You Guys Foundation that does the standard response protocol. I Love You Guys Foundation was created by the parents of a student that was killed at Platte Canyon High School when a 53-year-old man came on campus with a gun, took 7 girls hostage in a room, sexually abused them, and ended up killing this girl. She had texted to her parents, "I love you guys,"
Before she died.
and that's where the parents of this student then created this foundation. You can go on iloveyoguys.org, and all the information is free. They freely give it out to every school that wants to have a plan, and it is an amazing plan. But they go over this. We can talk more about that if you want later on. I can give you more information about the training we provide to the schools, faculty, staff, and administration. Okay.
All right. Commitment to keeping kids in school. In the past years, many students were sometimes arrested for fighting. When I first came onto the SRO unit, like I say, I was in the unit 9 years, and I recently came back as an SRO supervisor. And I can say that back then, the arrest rate was probably one of the highest in the states. But now, since the implementation of the juvenile citations, with our ability to refer some of those behaviors to the schools, it has cut down on our arrest rate dramatically. I mean, we barely make arrests unless it is rarely. I mean, unless it's like a forcible felony or some real bad felony. We either referring them, like school fights, referring them to the school. The school handles the discipline portion of it. If we have to do a juvenile citation, we'll complete a juvenile citation. Again, there are certain parameters for the juvenile citation, but that's our first thought, is to do a juvenile citation or to refer them to school for school discipline. Mental health is often a factor when issues of highly disruptive behavior emerge on campus. This can trigger a mental health assessment. Officers are empowered to bake or act students if they believe the child is suicidal or in immediate danger to seriously harm others. But SROs always try to bring mental health experts to help in these assessments. Our SROs are absolutely fantastic when it comes to kids who are dealing with trauma or in a situation to where they have, suicidal ideations. Again, the MRTs, they're a group of people at the school who are the first response when it comes to kids that are dealing with trauma. If they need to get SROs involved, there has to be a Baker Act situation. The SROs must contact the parents and let the parents know what's going on before they take action. All right. SROs do not become involved in matter of school suspensions. This is critical. We don't have any say-so on school suspensions. Now, we can be there to support them, but we don't have any say-so on, hey, this kid needs to be suspended, how many days this kid needs to be suspended. We can be there, like I say, to support them, but we don't make any of those decisions.
All right. What else are we involved in? A lot. Summer schools, we have officers that are staffing the schools during the summer programs. The DC Safety Patrol trip, the elementary 5th graders are all safety patrol. They have a safety patrol at each school. The officers, the SROs are very engaged with those kids. And so when we get the opportunity to go with them to DC on their safety patrol trip as chaperones, we do that. We have 3, I think, going this...
Yeah, 3.
3 going this time. Project Heatwave, the summer basketball program, is going to be at Lincoln and at MLK Center again, and we staff those. The Junior Police Academy, Police Explorers, the Public Safety Summer Camp. We have Police Mini Academy, Shop with the Cop. Have you all heard of Shop with the Cop?
Yeah.
We love that. We love that program. Along with Heroes and Helpers. Shop with the Cop is usually with Walmart, and Heroes and Helpers is usually with Target. Yes?
Does the highlighted red mean something in particular?
I don't know why that was in there. I don't know why it was in there. I don't. Rad Kids is a program. We have 2 Rad Kids certified instructors in our unit that do summer programs with the kids. We have subject matter experts that go to the state and talk with state commissions on when we have issues come up about school resource officers and state issues. We do patrol deployment when we're not in schools. Okay, like when the hurricanes happen, that's an extra 20 officers that we put on the road. We help the charter schools whenever we can. We don't staff the charter schools, but we help them out. Mentoring programs, and the Public Safety Summer Camp. And we talked about Shop with the Cop. Okay. And GPD and ASO both were recognized as the best units in the state.
That's wonderful.
So,
Great.
we have amazing people. If you look at some of the next slides, just go through those, Deb. These are some of your school resource officers in the schools they work at. One right here.
There's one right there. Listen, they have
Amazing.
They have a Officer Teasley Day at his school where they literally parade around campus, with pins that says Officer Teasley on it. They literally, seriously, they do it every single year. That's how much they love them.
And the impact our SROs like Corporal Teasley have,
Corporate Teasley.
it just goes from year after year, and that kid now has great relations with an officer, which leads to more great relationships, and it just expounds from there. So you can't put, too much emphasis on what these SROs do with kids. Next one is Officer Diamond Smith at Williams, Officer Jackson, who's probably our most senior SRO. He's been doing this probably the longest, him and Nate Ellis. Then Officer Henson. And next, Corporal Mosier is at Talbot. Alan Davis is at Metcalf. Officer Cook is at Howard Bishop, and he is amazing with those kids. Have y'all ever met Officer Cook?
I don't know.
You put him in spandex and a cape, and he is a superhero. His arms are huge. And
Which one did you say?
She's taking notes.
Officer
That's
Penny,
more details.
Officer Penny at Lincoln has been their basketball coach for years and engages these kids as in sports as well as during the school day as their resource officer. Officer Bryce is at Westwood. Next. High schools, Corporal Dontaño Smith is at Lofton, and then Graham and Ellis are both at GHS. Then there's Officer Nate Ellis. He's an exceptional school resource officer. You couldn't make this man mad for nothing. He works at Aquin Jones, and if any of you guys have ever visited Aquin Jones, that's some of our harder kids to get along with. He and Officer Dualehi do a great job in keeping the calm in that school and relating with these kids throughout the day. They don't just sit in an office. They relate with these kids, and it keeps the tone calm throughout the day there. They rarely have fights or incidents there. And then Officer Clark is at Sidney Lanier. He's a brand new SRO, but an experienced officer, and he's been filling in there, and the staff and students love him. There's a student that is deaf and autistic, and Officer Clark started to learn sign language so he could talk to this kid.
Wow.
And then there's our lieutenant. Our commander is Lieutenant Rob Kohler, and the two of us. And then we recently had this picture taken as our unit photo for this year. That hurt our knees a lot.
Very good. It was his idea.
But we're like, come on, take the picture, please.
Yeah.
So that's our unit. You have any questions? Yes.
At one point you said officers are empowered to Baker Act students. They can literally complete the paperwork. It doesn't have to be a position.
Yes, any police officer in the state of Florida is empowered to complete the Baker Act form and Baker Act someone. We try to get everybody involved. If it's not an emergency, if the kid is not actually hurting themselves, then we would have to go ahead and just do the Baker Act. But we try to, whenever there's someone in crisis, get the counselors involved, the deans if necessary, the principal, and then the mobile response teams from the Alachua County Crisis Center. They come to us within a 30-minute time frame. They'll come to us to talk to this kid and try to get a better picture of what is the real need here before we get to a point of Baker Act. Many times, we don't have to Baker Act. We can release the child to the parents, and the mobile response team has already arranged counseling at Meridian for them.
If you discover a situation with substance use, can you Marchman Act also?
Yes, yes we can. That, I can't remember that we've ever
Not
dealt
one
with
time, not at all.
a Marchman Act in schools.
I have a pretty specific question. So my kids are now in 6th grade at Westwood. So
Awesome.
first of all, I think that makes those of you know, remembers when they were like babies, that's a very long time ago. I've been really struck by just the things they're exposed to in middle school as compared to elementary school. And I was really curious, is middle school, what you're seeing this year in middle schools in general, kind of what is always there, or is there things evolved because of COVID or other things?
I definitely think
I
they
think it's
evolved.
different.
Okay.
Yeah, it's different. Like you said, because the kids were out like what, an entire year or so.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Matt's
I think you're
opinion.
right.
Yeah,
They
right.
weren't in school for a while, so they went from 4th grade
Yeah.
Yes,
to middle school.
pretty much. And
And we're seeing the
then-
same thing in high school too. Ninth
Okay.
graders are so immature, they're just not up to where they normally
Yeah,
would be.
Right.
I definitely see that, and, you know, they come home and they just talk about, oh, yeah, there was this giant fight, and this and that, and I mean, real stuff, you know, and it's just such a big jump from that. So, yeah, it's just, I think it's that change, where they were from where they went to where they are now.
Are they at Howard Bishop?
No, they're at Westwood.
And Westwood is a busy school. We have one officer there and over 1,000 kids.
Yeah, I knew
And
it's a
normally-
lot, you guys. It's a
Normally,
lot.
when the school reaches 1,000, we try to get a second SRO in there because there's so much going on.
There is.
Yeah.
There is. No, yes. I've had the opportunity to meet the administration from a few incidents with my children. Don't
Yes.
you worry.
So, yeah, I was crossing guard
Yes.
at almost all the schools.
Yes.
So, a lot of fights at Howard Bishop. Kids thought that I was calling the police. I'm like, dude, y'all are posting it on social media as it's happening. Have y'all had any arrests this year? The
We have had a
SRO
few.
Yeah, I think.
We have had a few. One of the ones was on the stat there, whereas battery against a specified employee, because battery against a school board employee rises it up to a felony, a third-degree felony. And at Aikman Jones, we had a girl that they just could not calm her down, and she ended up battering the dean there. And the officer had to restrain her in what's called a primary restraint technique, handled with care, which is different than a lot of police tactics. It's trying to not, it restrains someone without hurting them. And that young lady had to go to jail. Yes.
So are there any others that you?
Some
I would
serious
like to
complaints?
know.
Yes, I think, yeah, we had a threat to school safety at
Yeah.
Lincoln Middle School.
Oh, yeah.
And we had another kid that tried to come onto campus with a weapon.
With a
Yeah,
handgun.
with a gun. So thank God we ended up catching him. We ended up getting him at home, and so we had to arrest him.
And on that particular one, it was the relationship that Officer Penny had with other kids. And these kids came and told him, hey, that kid's got a gun. Where if he didn't have that relationship, that kid would have been made it onto campus in a classroom with a handgun.
He wasn't even a student there. He was a former student.
Former
And he
student.
was upset with another kid that went to school there.
Yep.
So,
Well, I would like to commend you all for maybe 12 years ago. We were contacted by the Justice Department because Gainesville, actually, Alachua County, have the highest arrest record in the country.
wow.
You remember, oh, he's taking a name. Well, anyway, we brought it to the chief and the county
You
commissioner.
saying this was how long ago, Ms.
Maybe 10, 12
That's-
years. It was
yes,
the
that's
school,
correct. That's
the
correct,
school to prison pipeline.
Correct.
Is what we brought it, and the NAACP brought it to the attention
Right.
of the chief and the city commission and the school board. And they started a committee because we were embarrassed. We were one of the highest,
Oh, yeah.
had the highest percentage in the nation, and that's why they contacted the NAACP, somebody from the Justice Department. And from that time to this time, and looking at the numbers, I just cannot believe it. And you all are to be commended for an outstanding job. And now we're not embarrassed that we have the highest in the state, probably one of the lowest now, I would say.
Right.
So
I
thank
agree.
you all. For those of you who didn't hear about it, it was a school to prison pipeline. It came from the NAACP, and it was later changed to the system of care. One of the school board members didn't like the name school to prison pipeline, so they changed it to system of care. But thank you all for an
Yes,
awesome
ma'am.
job.
And anymore, on that note, anymore, the officers, most of their investigations of actual criminal activity, a crime that occur, they refer at the end of the investigation back to parental discipline, if parents are involved. It can be back to school discipline, which is the majority. We just refer it back to the school, and whatever the school deems to be appropriate discipline under their own student code of conduct, that's the way it's resolved. And then if necessary, we could do teen court, and then if necessary above that, we could do the sworn complaint. And then we try to restrict any type of physical arrest.
Yeah, because back then, the officers were arresting children for everything, the things that you all are talking about. Those kids were arrested. And that's why it's called school to prison pipeline. So because of your working with the NAACP and the school board and others, we are in great shape now, I think. Thank you all so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
We love our unit, yes.
I can't remember what city it happened in. It was national news maybe 3 years ago when police officers handcuffed, I think it was a 6-year-old girl.
Oh, yeah.
And later they said that there was they had a chart of procedures that just constrained them, that they had to do that. Do we have any such convoluted rules here that would force officers to do something that's
No.
crazy later on?
I've been a school resource officer both in Florida and Missouri, where I started my law enforcement career. And I can tell you, there's other agencies throughout the nation that don't train their officers like we do. They don't set up policies of letting parental discipline handle a problem, or school discipline handle a problem. And we don't see it that way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You have made a great difference in our county.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Yeah, as a point of information, we don't generally arrest kids that are 12 or under.
Right.
We don't arrest them. We do everything else we can. Typically, if we're gonna arrest, it's 13 and above.
Oh, very good.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
Okay, so the next item on the list is closed internal affairs case review. We have 3 cases to review. We are at 7:30, so in the interest of time, I was curious if we could focus on cases that members of the council had questions about. Do we have questions about every case? Or are there cases-
40 and 36.
40, that's,
I
my
mean, I
guess
could-
was that those would be the more interesting cases. Yeah, and then, so there's a case involving sort of a misuse of equipment, a crash. Did anyone have questions about that case?
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, then maybe Chief Inspector Kern, is she?
I think you're going to.
Oh, you're taking over. Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm the substitute.
You're a substitute, okay. So maybe we can skip that one then, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Do you want to start with one of the other two?
Yes.
Do we,
I don't think it matters which one.
Either one?
Talk about both, yeah.
and again, I'll go, in the interest of time, I'll go very, very fast. I'm not trying to
You're not
ignore
going to
any.
read the whole thing,
Yeah.
right?
Correct, that's what I'm saying. So
No,
I'll be very, very short, and then you guys can ask the questions that
Did
you
you read
want.
these, or we should have?
Yeah,
read
that you
these?
wanna ask.
I read them.
So yeah, 21-40 involves a gentleman that was involved in a trespass investigation at the Dollar General. His complaint pretty much said that the Dollar General and GPD facilitated his trespass from that store based on the fact that he had a service dog that was not on a leash. So in doing the investigation, we looked at the field contact report, we looked at the CAD notes, we looked at the body-worn camera, we looked at some Facebook Live video that was taken by the gentleman that was trespassed, and pretty much deduced this gentleman came into the Dollar General, had a dog with him, dog was not on a leash, although not required by law, the dog was not overtly marked as a service dog. So one of the employees questioned him about the dog not being on a leash and being in the store. They then have words, GPD is called, GPD asks Dollar General if they would like the gentleman trespassed. They go through the motions of trespassing him. The gentleman's concerned, he feels that he's being trespassed because of his dog. And while that will seem to be the crux of the situation, Dollar General says that it was based on his attitude and demeanor when he was asked about his dog. So, gentleman was issued a trespass warning, which is purely civil, nothing criminal at that point. Asked to speak to a supervisor. Supervisor came, addressed the same concerns with him. So ultimately, I mean, that was the investigation, and the investigation pretty much, revealed that while the officers didn't seem to have the amount of knowledge on the service dog law that this gentleman did, that his attitude and conduct facilitated Dollar General trespassing him from that location, and then we just kind of come in there and document that. We're not even really needed. It is a civil issue as far as the trespass goes between Dollar General and this gentleman, but we kind of come in and facilitate that in order to kind of keep the peace. And if ever later on that employee obviously isn't still there, this gentleman comes back and causes problems, we have documentation that we have previously spoken to him about him being there at that Dollar General. Ready?
Any questions?
Okay, so officer register is the one who asked the store employee if he wanted Mr. Wild to be trespassed.
Yes, ma'am?
Officer Register, quote, "Once in trespass, it's as simple as that." I feel like when the sergeant came or the supervisor, the person kind of calmed things down. I feel like I'm all about on this board about how people feel the attitude is, how they're being treated.
Sure.
And then Officer Register lets Jeff leave. No body-worn camera from the sergeant was addressed later. But Mr. Wild said that he had mental health issues, I feel like he could have been handled better. It was obvious the way he kept going over and over. And I don't agree with the first paragraph of the conclusion where it appears as if the officer is complying with the trespass when he actually asked if he brought it up. And
Yeah, and that's probably his experience kicking in, meaning generally when we go to a Dollar General, if we go to Sears, if we go to Pinch a Penny, if we go to any retail establishment, if you go to a bar and someone's being disorderly in a bar, generally it's a trespass situation. So that's probably his experience getting a little ahead of him. Generally, if we go there and there is some kind of disturbance between the store and a patron, it generally ends up being a trespass type.
I know, I was arrested for trespass.
Okay. Okay.
But, and that officer also suggested to the manager. So what I'm just saying is, it may not seem like a big deal, except that man now, that may be where he shops, and now he can't go there for a year, so that bothers me.
Sure, well, that was the other good thing as well. He called Dollar General the next day, spoke to someone above that employee, and Dollar General resolved that, according to the gentleman, the day or the next day. And since we had made sure that our records reflect what Dollar General's wishes are, because again, this is an issue between Dollar General and this gentleman, we just kind of document it. So he is not trespassed from Dollar General,
Well,
and
it
he
said
can shop there.
that he could shop there with the dog.
Right.
I didn't see in the records that you all would not go and arrest him if he passed through the door.
Yeah, no, I mean, he hasn't been, so since that day, he never has been, whether he's been there or not, I don't know. But he hasn't been arrested, and our records no longer reflect that he received, or they probably reflect that he received a trespass warning, but they now reflect that it has been rescinded by Dollar General.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Another question. All right, next one.
So the next one, we received a complaint. This gentleman saying he was attacked by 6 or 7 officers and his face was slammed and pushed into the concrete during his arrest. While he was on the ground, he was punched several times in his side and hips with a closed fist. And then when he was placed in the patrol vehicle, he was choked with hands and forearms. He also stated his wallet was taken, which contained his ID card, credit card, and $2,200 cash. So again, reviewed incident reports, arrest reports, computer-aided dispatch notes, body-worn camera footage. We also, did some bank statements and some medical records, because he was saying that one of his teeth were also chipped during his arrest. So, in looking at everything and summarizing the whole incident, we received a call from a female. He was at the house, he was threatening her, he also had an active felony warrant for domestic violence. She was in fear for her safety, and stated that this gentleman was walking around with his fists balled. She described him as agitated, so we arrived, we made announcements, but he would not answer the residence. We tried to contact him by phone, he wouldn't answer the phone. After 25 minutes of trying to get the gentleman to come outside, ASO K9 came because he had warrants, gave announcements, and he finally exited a bathroom slowly and was reluctant to cooperate with Alachua County deputies. When he came out of the residence, we grabbed his arm to place it behind his back. He tensed his arm, resisted efforts, and then a couple of officers took him to the ground. In reviewing the body worn camera, it doesn't appear that Wims's face ever made contact with the paved concrete area of the ground. It's kind of the front house, so I think it's a walkway, a pavement walkway, kind of with the grass on both sides. So I do believe his body hit the concrete, but his face and head were over the grass, but it didn't even look like it made contact with the grass. At no point during his arrest was Wims punched or struck in any way by any of the officers. As no force was used and there was no complaint of injury on scene, a use of force review was not required for this incident. So while they were in the process of processing him and gathering his belongings, the officer that had his wallet and keys and ID and that kind of stuff was getting ready to get in the car and take this gentleman to jail. He started kicking the windows and kicking the door. So in order to address that, he threw all the stuff on the top of his patrol car to address the gentleman kicking the windows and the doors. We then opened the car doors to secure him in a rip hobble and get him to sit up. At that point is when he's screaming that we are choking him, but again, on body worn camera, there's no choking at all. We're holding him by his shoulders, except for 6 seconds where we cupped his chin, because it appeared he was probably trying to bite the officer. So after all that's done, after that's all settled, we drive him to jail and forget that the wallet and keys are on the roof of the vehicle. So when we get to the jail, I guess the keys are up there, but the wallet is not. And then we looked into the tooth too. So generally in looking into his tooth, he does have what they're calling an incomplete fracture on one of his teeth, and talking to the dentist that examined him at ASO, DOJ, Department of Jail, she's saying there's no telling where it could have come from. It could have come from clinching, it could have come from, it's unknown. It could have come from the arrest, it could not have. That's it. We told the officer he probably should have addressed the lost wallet. I think he was nervous that he messed up. He could have addressed it a little earlier, let us know, documented it. So we counseled him on just handling that a little better.
And you give them the money back?
Well, so all that's referred to risk management. So City of Gainesville Risk Management is aware. We've been talking to them. We gave them this report. Mr. Wims is dealing with them, and they're the ones that kind of decide what happens with that. Yes, sir.
Did the physician at the jail address whether there were facial abrasions?
Yeah, she said there were none of that. I think it is noted in the report that he did have an abrasion or something like that up here by his eye, but they were saying that there was no trauma or anything like that to the teeth. Yes, ma'am.
So, again, this has resisting without violence on it. I would like to find out how many of those charges are tacked on, if possible, on the arrest y'all made this year. I'm also interested, y'all have K-9. Why was the sheriff's called? Because he had an outstanding warrant?
Yes, ma'am. So they're the ones that are, I don't know what the proper term is, but they're the ones that are charged with dealing with warrants, and they're the ones that can enter houses, and they're the ones, like the warrants, or even if it's GPD charges, it goes through the sheriff's office. So since he's in a house, since he is not exiting, we don't have the right to go in and get him, but ASO does.
So there's some quotes in here that I know people hate me that I'm dragging this out, but quote, taken to the ground. Also, I was concerned about the way he was questioned about. I understand it's to find out if he was lying after you go through the bank statement. But why was he questioned about if he works and why did he have so much cash, the $2,200? I felt like that was really intrusive. And then it says, Wims was likely to become violent, quote, because of what the woman said to police officers. I feel that's why he was taken to the ground. And I felt like, I don't know, it's the person who was writing up the report. I hope it wasn't you.
It was not.
But it was a little less elegant than some of the others.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff like taking them to the ground and this is what we had to do because I feel like the arrest was somewhat aggressive, whether he was resisting at the beginning or not. That's just my
Okay.
comment.
Yeah, and just, I mean, that one's gonna be tough to address, I guess. As far as the questioning with the cash, if you're talking 2,200 cash, again,
Right.
it's an objective investigation. So if we can prove he had 2,200 cash, then we owe him 2,200 cash. So, you know, if he's just showing up to risk management and says, hey, I had 2,200 cash, but I have no idea, there's no way I can prove that. You know, I don't have a job, I don't have bank statements, I don't have income, I don't, you know, so that's just kind of the objective. He's saying he has 2,200 cash. Can we prove that he does? You know, how can we assist that, and how can we figure out if that is the case?
Where does the burden of proof lie?
Yeah. Well, then,
Was the body cam on during the,
Not the sergeant.
Well, not the, in this case, I think everyone had it on. The sergeant in the dog case didn't have it on when he was addressing the gentleman. But yeah, all that stuff, and that's why we know that he wasn't hit while he was on the ground, and he wasn't choked, and, you know, because it was all captured on body-worn camera.
Any other questions?
I was just curious, in the case with the dog, when all this was going on, what was the dog's behavior?
Phenomenal. I have not, phenomenal. Yeah, it was phenomenal. He was just hanging out, waiting.
okay,
All right, thanks so much.
thank you.
Oh, can I ask one question?
Oh, yeah.
This is not about his presentation.
Oh,
But in
okay.
the earlier item, the training, if we go to an individual session, where is it? If we didn't say where it is.
It's the Hall of Heroes.
All
yeah.
heroes.
Where?
Where?
In the police department. Yeah, police department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Last item on the agenda here, well, almost.
Public comment.
Public comment time.
All right.
I was just gonna I just came back from a go ahead, sorry. I didn't see you moving, so I didn't know we had public. You're more important.
I'm public, yes ma'am. My name is Danielle Chances. I'm a community organizer and activist. I do a lot of work in the community. I very specifically work oftentimes with people who are facing criminal charges. And I just work with a lot of directly impacted communities and sat through the meeting today, and I do have a few comments. I'm actually going to start with this internal affairs report because we just went over it. And oh, I like inhaled a piece of fabric from my mask. I just have one comment about the case that was just went over about Curtis Wims, which is the fact that if you look up this case in the Clerk of Courts, which is public record, and I encourage everybody to learn how to do it, this man was arrested 4 miles from the jail, and I think it is very suspicious that 4 miles he was transported from the location of arrest to the jail, and somehow his keys remained on the car, but his wallet was not there. I think that's weird, and I just have to say that. In regards to this presentation about the pre-arrest diversion program, when members from GPD presented about this program to the City Commission a couple of months ago, I made a comment about how pathetic these numbers were, and I agree again today. If you look at the pre-arrest diversion, you have 16 people who are white who are pre-arrest diverted, and only 8 people who are black. I don't know what that means, but we don't only have black and white people in the city of Gainesville, and I don't understand why we are diverting more white people from the system when we know that we have disproportional minority contact and more black people are more directly impacted by the system. So, and then if you further look at the crimes, you have 6 people who were diverted for alcohol beverage possession by a person under 21 years of age, and 5 people who are diverted from a residential party with alcohol, drugs, or minors without adults. Now, I don't know for certain, but if I had to take a bet or a guess, I would say that those 11 people more than likely are white college students. So, I just think that if we are doing these programs in the community, we should be I don't get me wrong, I went to UF, I love UF students-ish, but like we need to make sure that we're impacting the community that is actually affected, by this. I think that there needs to be more work done. I don't know what other demographic information could be collected, if we're looking at zip code or where these incidences are happening or whatnot, but it just feels like this is actually not helping the community and those who are most directly impacted by arrest. And I think that's the intention of this program. And when you look at these statistics, they don't say to me that that is something that's actually happening. And then the last thing I wanted to address is, like I mentioned, I work with people. Oh, did you have something?
Can I just comment on that?
Yeah.
That, just real quickly, I think that's a very reasonable, my view is that that's a very reasonable concern, and I think these disparities are something to worry about. But I will say, and I think in the very first part of the meeting, I'm not sure you were there or not for that. When we were
I
doing
missed the
these-
first 30 minutes.
The
I
very
actually
first-
meant
yeah.
to precurse what I said, that I missed the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, so no, not a problem. But something that, was noted was that these snapshot statistics are very difficult to sort of use, right? And so something that we would like to see and that Chief Scott is hopefully going to provide for us are some sort of, or longer term or more longitudinal comparisons of statistics over time. Because I think that's I think that will show more conclusively what the program's doing, who's benefiting, who's being targeted, and so on. But even the snapshot I agree is concerning, so I agree with you, yeah.
I think we discussed this a few months back, and in the diversion program, they are referred to the state's attorney's office. So you all actually don't make the decision, if I remember correctly from the presentation that was done, it was the state's attorney office, and that's who you really need to.
But that's not this program.
No,
I
that's-
believe the chief literally just said that this is GPD's pre-arrest diversion program
Yes.
that doesn't go to the state.
The
So
woman
this
who
is
came
GPD's
to
own
state
diversion program.
Oh, okay.
But there is another one that goes to the state.
No, you are correct.
That's what you told
We
me.
don't have the power or authority to not prosecute someone. The people who did, we refer it to the state attorney's office. The state attorney's office makes a final determination. We got a person that reviews it, looks at it, makes a determination whether or not this is something that they want to refer for the pre-trial intervention or pre-arrest intervention. They refer to the state attorney's office. The state attorney's office reviews it, and they make a decision as to whether or not they're going to allow this person to participate in the program or not.
I think we addressed the fact
Yeah, but can
that,
I
just
it was
say
one
something?
person,
pardon me?
the person who came, who was hired in January, we're told it's the police who recommend first, that it was one person that GPD hired who looks at the stuff. It's still one person making that recommendation
Yes,
at
but
one-
that person.
from GPD.
Yes,
To
Yeah,
the state attorney's
to
office.
the state attorney's
Right.
office. They may make the recommendation from what I can understand.
Can
but
I-
it's up
Can
to
we let the?
This is my,
Yes, please, yes,
and
go ahead.
I just want some clarification here, because when you were speaking, Chief, you were saying a few different things, and I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but they are all very different things, because a pretrial intervention is different than a deferred prosecution, is different than GP's pre-arrest diversion, is different than the state attorney's pre-arrest. And I've met with the state attorney, like I spend my time in courtrooms, and you were using kind of different words, and I think that can be a little bit confusing, because I just heard you when you were speaking, talking about the state's the one that makes decisions about pretrial intervention and stuff. And so I just want clarification. These numbers that you were giving, these were GPD's pre-arrest diversions, and yes, like you guys don't have the authority to make the prosecuting stuff, but these were the people that you've entered into your pre-arrest diversion program that you have referred to the state, that is separate from the other cases that just go straight to the state that they put in their own diversionary program.
Again, to clarify, same thing I said earlier. We have a person that goes through these files, through these arrests. That person looks at it and makes a recommendation to the state attorney's office for the pre-arrest program. That when they make that recommendation, the state attorney's office evaluates that and determines whether or not that person is going to be able to successfully participate in the program. That's simple. I don't know how clear I can be with that one.
Okay, again, I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but again, like you're kind of confusing me, because you say you look at these arrests, but then you put them to the pre-arrest program. So if they're not being arrested, then how are you looking at arrests? That's confusing what you just stated.
I said earlier before you got here.
Okay.
The pre-arrest program is just that, the people are not physically arrested. The document is put forth,
Yes.
it is not an arrest,
but these are still your numbers of the people that you referred or the people that got
Yes.
accepted to the state attorney's program? Okay, thank you, I don't know if this is something the council would like to do, but it might be helpful too to see everybody who was referred versus who was accepted, like maybe just for community transparency. That's just my-
Yeah, that'd be a helpful number to see.
Yes.
And was this
Would those numbers be with the state attorney's office?
Yeah, I would think so.
Because I remember when we had that meeting, that was what, I asked that question.
I think
And
you're
I
right.
believe that's what she told us then.
Yeah, and I can ask, I can bring it back and let her speak for herself. But the simple fact is, when we take the benefit to the pre-arrest is that we are not physically or virtually arresting the subject. We are providing the information that if we deemed it a notice to appear, it would be an arrestable offense. The state attorney makes an assessment and says this person is qualified for or not.
I have one other question. The numbers that Danielle is looking at, are they just the numbers for the month of February? The number that you gave us when you went through the,
They are February,
okay, it's just for 1 month. Okay.
but it's still disproportional.
I will note that we're over the 3 minutes of comment.
I did have one thing that I really wanted to address, and I don't think, I mean, the time,
Why don't you get
Excuse
why don't you get the last word, and then we will adjourn right after that.
I think that's fine, it just, all the back and forth, I don't know that it was fair to
I
say how much
understand.
time that I actually spoke.
I understand.
The last thing I wanted to address, and I think that this council should look into, is that there have been more than one occasion in the past month and a half that I have been present in court where a GPD officer testified in court and admitted on the stand to violating GPD policies. I don't know what mechanism GPD would even have in place to investigate that unless somebody made an actual complaint about it. But it is very disconcerting to have officers be on the stand where they have power over individuals in a setting where somebody's being prosecuted and openly admitting in court that they are violating GPD policies in the process of an arrest. And I think it is something that the community should be concerned about and should look into.
Can you
Thank you.
send those incidences?
I don't, could you repeat that?
Could you let us know what the policies were?
I'm afraid that we're over
Yes.
time for